While the clergy sexual abuse scandal in the Diocese of Buffalo exploded on his watch, Buffalo Bishop Richard Malone has claimed to be different from the bishops before him who covered up the abuse.
That's a situation I have inherited.
Well, of course, this all predates my arrival in the diocese. I don't know all those details.
We have been going about this whole thing when an allegation comes in an entirely different way than it was done in decades past.
But hundreds of internal church documents obtained by 7 Eyewitness News show that in the case of one priest, Bishop Malone not only returned that priest to ministry after a previous bishop removed him, but ignored 3 new allegations against that priest, misled others about that priest's history, and repeatedly put him around young people, despite clear warnings from parents. In 2011, Father Art Smith caused a controversy at St. Mary of the Lake School in Hamburg when he sent a Facebook message using the words "love you" to an 8th grade boy. The boy's mother, along with St. Mary's principal Christine Hyder, took their concerns to the diocese, saying in an internal memo that Smith was known by students as the Creeper and showed signs of grooming and stalking the young boy. Hyder, the principal, wanted him gone from the school and met with Auxiliary Bishop Edward Grosch. Hyder said Grosch got up from his seat and said of Father Smith, quote, "I thought he was better." Edward Kimmick, who was Bishop of Buffalo during that time, suspended Smith from the parish, announcing that Smith was taking a medical leave. But according to the principal, Father Smith refused to stay away from the school, showing up outside a classroom in March 2012. The principal fired off a letter to the diocese saying, "This man is a predator and a groomer of young children. Something needs to be done. As school principal, I feel the students in grade 8 have been injured and troubled by the actions of this man more than originally thought. But if Smith's career looked to be in jeopardy then, it would soon get a resurrection, with the arrival of a new bishop in Buffalo in August 2012.
Tonight, Buffalo officially has a new Catholic bishop. Bishop Malone is now the 14th Catholic bishop of Buffalo.
Father Art Smith began making inroads with new Bishop Richard Malone immediately. "I would like to attend your installation as my new bishop," Smith wrote, requesting a meeting with Malone to talk about, quote, "the progress I have made and the skills I am learning." Later, in a diocesan communication obtained by the I-Team, Smith described the Facebook contact with the student as, quote, "inappropriate," but said he honestly believed it to be innocent and friendly. Diocesan attorney Terry Connors wrote that, quote, "Father Art is minimizing the Facebook incident." But in November 2012, Bishop Malone returned Smith to ministry and what he would describe as a, quote, "lower profile position as chaplain of Brothers of Mercy nursing home in Clarence. Smith wrote to Bishop Malone a month later saying, "Thank you kindly for redeeming me and giving some life back to me." In 2013, Smith heard confessions at the Diocese annual Catholic Youth Conference at the Adams Mark Hotel, which left Hyder, the principal at St. Mary's, incredulous. In 2 letters to Bishop Malone, she wrote, "If a teacher would have been grooming children and had inappropriate relations with a minor, they would have been fired and lost their license to teach. Yet a priest that has a history of inappropriate contact with the youth was among the youth ministering the sacrament of reconciliation." But if Bishop Malone thought that Father Art Smith could do no harm to young people at a nursing home for the elderly, he would be proven wrong yet again. In October 2013, the regional superior of the Brothers of Mercy wrote to Bishop Malone to report that Smith had somehow found 2 young men at the nursing home and had inappropriately touched them both. One man, aged 19, worked in the dietary department and reported inappropriate remarks and touching. The other, a 25-year-old seminarian, reported inappropriate touching in the sacristy after Mass. "We were willing to take a chance with Father Art," the superior of the Brothers of Mercy wrote to Bishop Malone, "but due to his inappropriate conduct with employees, we must terminate Father Smith's work on our campus." Meanwhile, Father Smith in August 2014 wrote a letter to Pope Francis, where he casted himself as a victim and again said he served for 42 years without incident. Documents show Bishop Malone asked Smith to honor their gentleman's agreement that he not wear clerical garb, offer sacraments, or say Mass publicly. When the sexual abuse crisis exploded in Buffalo earlier this year, Malone said the protocol on abusive priests was clear.
And sometimes in the past, and we know this is a mistake now, the verdict would be they can return to ministry. We would never do that now.
What he didn't say then is that in May 2015, despite documented allegations of Smith's behavior, documents show he met with the embattled priest to discuss the possibility of beginning to reintegrate your priestly ministry in the Diocese of Buffalo. In another letter, he offered him, "my gratitude for your service to our diocese," as you assist various priests in local parishes. Meanwhile, Smith's letter to Rome had worked its way through the Vatican, which wanted an explanation from Bishop Malone. In a 2015 letter to the Vatican's investigative agency, Bishop Malone was on the defensive, saying he had good reason to hold Smith from ministry because of Smith's grooming of the young boy and the fact that he checked himself out of the treatment center after only a day. Under my watch as diocesan bishop, Malone wrote, contrary to what Father Smith stated in his letter, he once again faced boundary issues. He mentioned the 8th grader from Hamburg and the 2 men Smith reportedly touched at Brothers of Mercy. Then the bishop revealed 2 more encounters by Smith that were never made public. A 2004 incident at a city parish where Father Art seemed to groom a seminarian to get his affection. And a 2013 incident at Millard Fillmore Suburban Hospital, in which a 30-year-old male patient complained that Smith was caressing his forearm. Of the 2004 incident, the bishop wrote, one night the seminarian recounted an incident where Father Art came to his room, came into his bed, and began to touch his genitalia. Then, after telling the Vatican why Father Smith appeared to be so dangerous, Bishop Malone inexplicably ended the letter by saying, on the basis of his cooperation in regard to regular counseling, I have granted Father Smith faculties to function as a priest in the Diocese of Buffalo. Despite what he said to the Vatican about Smith's long history, just 2 months earlier, Bishop Malone wrote Smith a glowing letter of recommendation to the Apostleship of the Sea cruise service, endorsing Smith to be a chaplain aboard a cruise. The bishop made no mention of Smith's history in writing, quote, he is a person of good moral character and reputation. I know nothing which would in any way limit or disqualify him from this ministry. I am unaware of anything in his background which would render him unsuitable to work with minor children. Last year, after 5 years of tumult that included 3 new allegations of sexual misconduct, Bishop Malone granted Father Art Smith his wish of returning to a parish, where he lives to this day. Smith's bedroom is located next door to an old Catholic elementary school, which now houses a preschool. It's directly across the street from the Depew Lancaster Boys and Girls Club.
I have a deep respect for the virtues of piety and obedience.
Kyle is a devout, faithful Catholic from Buffalo, which is why it almost pains him to tell the story of Father Robert Yetter, the longtime pastor of St. Mary's in Swarmville, who 5 years ago offered Kyle what was supposed to be a helping hand.
This was my first opportunity to be able to really ask him some deep questions about the faith so that I could get some answers for what I was searching for.
It was 2013, and Kyle was 25 when Father Yetter took him to see a movie at the Walden Galleria.
We were like lightly laughing about something that was, mildly funny, and then he just kind of finished the laughter with, ha, 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 and then just slaps his hand right here. My first reaction was to freeze. Now, I'm this 25-year-old straight guy and never really been in this situation, and I knew if my own dad did that, I wouldn't be okay with it.
Kyle says Yetter kept his hand on his inner thigh for 30 to 45 seconds.
I went from, freeze to fight, and I snapped. I said, would you stop touching me? And he freaked out. He was like, whoa, oh, I'm sorry.
Kyle, in April of last year, finally found the strength to come forward.
You have to report this. You have a duty as long as you have the fortitude to do so, because you might not be the only one.
Kyle wasn't the only person to come forward to report sexual advances by Father Yetter to the Diocese of Buffalo. 2 other young men also told the diocese that they witnessed similar experiences with the priest. But hundreds of internal church records obtained by 7 Eyewitness News show that Bishop Malone and those who work for him allowed Yetter to remain a pastor at a large parish with little consequences for his actions. They also took steps to withhold this information from the public. Victim number 2 was the second young man to allege misconduct by Father Yetter. He said he was 19 when Yetter offered to help him through a challenging time. They had dinner and wine at the St. Mary's Rectory before Yetter, according to the official complaint submitted to the diocese, reached over, hugged him, and started kissing him on the neck, chin, and cheek. Church records show the victim reported the priest tried to kiss him again while using his hand to grab his pants zipper and genital area. Another time, Yetter allegedly took him to a casino, offered him alcohol, and started kissing his neck, then pushed him onto a chair before he was able to get away. In both cases, the diocese called Yetter in for a meeting with Auxiliary Bishop Edward Grosch.
Bishop Grosch, my auxiliary bishop, meets regularly with priests who are unassignable.
for various reasons.
According to internal memos, Yetter admitted to the touching in the movie theater, but said he didn't remember the incident in the casino. Gross's solution was to give Yetter a lecture on sexual harassment using this chart. Yetter in September 2017 wrote to Gross to say he planned to travel to Haiti on a mission trip as part of my penance. And in case the diocese had any thoughts about removing him, Yetter ended the letter with a veiled threat. Any pastoral changes at St. Mary's would be sensitive, I think, as parish is number 2 in the diocese for contributions to Upon This Rock, the diocesan capital campaign, second or third in assessments, or the annual tax parishes pay to the diocese, and 7th in fundraising for Catholic charities. 1 month later, the abuse crisis in the Diocese of Buffalo exploded. Sources tell 7 Eyewitness News that diocesan leaders considered Father Yetter for inclusion on the diocese list of credibly accused priests, but the diocese removed him before releasing the final version in March. Kyle met with Bishop Malone in June of this year and says the bishop told him that he was Father Yetter's only victim. But documents show at the time of that meeting, the diocese already had the complaints of victim number 2, as well as a third anonymous victim on file.
I asked Bishop Malone, so you're saying that I was the only one? And he said, yes, I've reviewed his case. You are the only one that's come forward. So knowing what I know now, and that that's not true, I can't see that any other way than that he lied to me. And it's not good for a bishop to break the 8th commandment.
Tonight, the 7 Eyewitness News I-Team reveals a list of priests accused of sexual misconduct that was concealed by the Buffalo Diocese, never meant to see the light of day. In his exclusive report, 7 Eyewitness News I-Team Chief Investigator Charlie Speck details tonight the lengths the diocese went to in order to hide this list from your eyes.
When the Diocese of Buffalo in March revealed the list of 42 priests who were removed from ministry, were retired, or left ministry after allegations of sexual abuse of a minor, Bishop Richard Malone billed it as a historic coming clean of decades worth of secrets.
Victims often find themselves kind of liberated and empowered to come forth, if they've not yet come forth, if they see in print the name of their abuser.
But new evidence obtained by 7 Eyewitness News from inside the diocese's secret archives shows the true scope of abuse was much larger than Malone publicly let on, with a total of not 42, but 106 accused priests on the church's original draft list. But a second internal document indicates that may be understating the problem. A database of diocesan employees who have been accused of criminal, abusive, or inappropriate behavior, or who have been the victims of such behavior, reveals 324 names, mostly priests, but also deacons, nuns, and lay employees. Records show church officials made exceptions that allowed them to remove the majority of accused priests from the final list. That resulted in a much lower number for the public to digest, and it also allowed Bishop Malone to say that no accused priest was still in active ministry, even though in multiple cases that was not true. In addition to the 42 accused priests Malone identified in March, records show church leadership had full knowledge of another 64 accused priests, whose names were removed before the list was made public.
They are coming up with their own excuses, internal excuses by these categories. There's no categories. There's allegations. And if there are allegations, there should be investigations being conducted.
Barry Covert is an attorney representing a victim of Father Fabian Mariansky. Stephanie McIntyre was a 15-year-old at St. Patrick's Church in Barker when she says Mariansky began 7 years of abuse that not only robbed me of my youthful innocence, but destroyed my family. McIntyre hired a lawyer and reported the abuse to the diocese in 1995. The diocese suspended Mariansky but returned him to ministry in 2000, and he was assigned to a church in Clarence until recently. When creating the list of 42 accused priests, diocesan officials wrote, "We did not remove him from ministry despite full knowledge of the case, and so including him on the list might require explanation."
That is as cowardly of a document and an entry as I could ever imagine.
Father Mariansky's faculties were temporarily suspended, and he was on leave from the diocese, the document states. He has since been returned to ministry. Diocesan officials kept another current priest off the list because he, quote, credibly denied the claims made by a woman that the priest made her sons parade around in their underwear. But then they gave a more urgent reason for not disclosing the allegation to the public. He is still functioning as a pastor and so should not be on the list. Another priest, Father Joseph Rappel, who was accused of showing pornography to a 14-year-old and who has since been accused of sexual abuse, was kept off the list because, as diocesan officials put it, he does not fit our categories, and so we would have to change them to include him.